Hello and welcome to United Voice TV. I'm Daniela Antilli. This is the fourth in a series of in-depth specials. Today we take a look at the other side of ambulance life. We look at the treatment our ambos get from their employer, the state government, despite being voted as the most trusted profession in Australia. Our reporter starts by talking direct with working ambulance officers.
I'll just talk about my last fortnight, if you like, where it's been a contrast of resuscitating babies to pulling people out of car wrecks or being in the helicopter going, winching people off a ship.
Everything's time constrained. It's the amount of when the time the cell call goes off, the pager and the phone goes off. You've got to be out the door, in the car, and logged on with a short period of time. You've got time constraints on how quickly you have to get to the job. There's time constraints on the amount of time you actually spend in the house working on the patient. Then there's time constraints in transporting to the hospital.
We've got our patient transport people. They take the long-term illness, things like cancer patients, dialysis patients. They form a bond with these patients over a number of months and years. Eventually, the people who have got those chronic diseases eventually do pass on. They feel that.
As an emergency medical dispatcher, I work a 12-hour shift. I start at 6:30 in the morning and go through till 6:30 at night. Regardless of what is being screamed at me, the way I'm being abused, I have to distance myself from that. It's not personal. My job is to make sure that I get enough information from that person so that I can then provide appropriate instructions.
The most difficult job that I've ever done in my career was transporting an elderly gentleman to hospital. This elderly gentleman looked like my grandfather just after my grandfather had died.
Cases that involve children are probably the worst cases to deal with. A sick or injured child or even a deceased child is probably one of the more stressful environments that you can work in.
Anything involving children is terrible for paramedics. They can see their own children.
They're the jobs that revisit you in the middle of the night, time after time after time.
You go into a different gear, you click into a different gear.
You don't think about it. You arrive and you focus, you do your job, you get it done.
You might take a call and you hang up and you take another call, and you might have taken another 8 calls before you get the end result of that first one that you took. If you do get an end result, it is hard to go through those emotions with not knowing the end result.
Once the job's over, then that's when you start to think about the impacts.
Once the adrenaline wears off and you're back at the station and everything starts to calm down, and you then begin to really have a bit of a think about what's just transpired, that's when it just begins to affect you.
You wouldn't be human not to be affected in some way. I've always said that I file those jobs away. 25 years, I'm sure, I just hope that filing cabinet the drawer never pops open.
You go home and you give your kids an extra cuddle, or you go home and you go home to your own family and you thank yourself that it's not one of yours.
There's proven studies around that show that paramedics will have a shorter lifespan and have difficulty making it through to the full retirement age.
I don't think the government really cares.
I don't believe the government knows anything about what an ambulance officer does, whether it's in comms, PTS or on the road.
I don't think the government fully understands the implications that their decisions have on the workers on the ground.
They certainly compromise our capacity to do our job, and then that's probably the most disappointing part.
As an emergency medical dispatcher, you go to work to do the best that you can do. All we want to be is paid appropriately.
I think the arbitrated case recently, where the union went into negotiations in good faith, members or state councillors from all over flew down for those meetings, a majority of them in their own time, and spent days away from their families to come and negotiate in good faith. And the government would walk in at 9 o'clock and walk out by 9:05. They had no intention of talking to anybody because they wanted to get their wages policy through.
We were supposed to have a negotiation, which wasn't a negotiation. It was a government stipulating a mandated 2.2% wage increase in return for probably $10,000 to $15,000 per staff member per year reduction in entitlements.
They wanted to take away our meal windows and meal management. At the moment, they have to give us 2 breaks on a 12-hour shift within a certain period of time. They wanted to remove that completely.
That compromises the capacity for me to make a good informed decision. What we see is me continually being dispatched out on cases without having the capacity to prepare my vehicle appropriately at the hospital and clean it. So I'm going to prevent that cross-contamination onto other patients.
They also wanted to take away the consultation process, the grievance process. So if you had an issue with a manager or something within the organisation, there was a facility for you to actually put a grievance in. They wanted to remove that completely.
One of the big looming threats from the government at the moment is the modernisation of awards. Modernisation of awards is government speak for we are about to strip all the entitlements that we want out of your award without you having a say in it. Effectively what it will mean is the Minister for Health will decide what and what is not an entitlement for you to have at work.
Specifically for EMDs, outsourcing is a major threat. We are technically a call centre, and because we don't see people on a face-to-face, in-person basis, we're not considered frontline staff.
I've come from two services where privatisation has gone ahead, particularly when I worked in Victoria where patient transport officers were privatised, and now the London Ambulance Service has gone down the privatisation route as well. Privatisation of services and deregulation of services is a very dangerous path, and that's been proved with other services.
It means that a private provider is compromising the quality you're getting for the dollar value.
Job security has been taken out. Now they don't know if they're going to continue to have a job or not.
They don't care about paramedics working on their annual leave. In fact, in this meeting today, I've just got a text to ask me to work on my annual leave next week. This is a government that just is out of touch with everyday workers, particularly paramedics, who are there to look after Queenslanders, but are the paramedics being looked after? No, absolutely not.
With United Voice, what you see is what you get. They're a registered industrial body, which makes them a legitimate voice for the ambulance paramedic.
Well, United Voice has a huge team. They already have a political team, they have a communications team, they have industrial advocates, they have industrial specialists, they have a legal team who specialises in industrial relations law, who looks after paramedics when needed.
As an emergency medical dispatcher, it is one of the only unions that has specific people that know our industry. A lot of the other organisations as such that are looking to get into the field don't provide.
It's about the collective. It's about the ability of being able to organise en masse and have one consistent message.
As soon as you've divided within the ranks, you know that you've got split.
United Voice has definitely got the better ability to put together a strategic, well-balanced, well-informed campaign or defence or offence or whatever it is that we're doing in whatever industry we're doing.
We're honest with our members. We take specialist advice on the issues that we're fighting. We provide a realistic expectation to people. We don't lead people up the garden path, we don't give them false hope, we give them a realistic expectation based on a specialist advice and professional representation.
It's a large union for a start. There's 28,000 members in Queensland, and one of the things I see is whether you're a cleaner, a teacher aide, a health professional in the hospital or a paramedic, there's that brothers in arms mentality that we stand together on whatever issue it is and be loud and proud and achieve outcomes. So next steps is we become strategic, that we use our state council. We're meeting today. We're talking about campaigning and making sure that the community is aware and we engage the community that this rotten government, the LNP, doesn't care about paramedics.
The way forward is to be a member of the union and actually join those bigger campaigns. So we see the federal government actively attacking penalty rates. Anybody who thinks that's not going to eventually evolve into our industry is fooling themselves. It clearly will. It's happened elsewhere. We see the federal government currently having tied grants to the states. That means that they provide funding to the states on the basis that they privatise.
This is a very, very aggressive government. Have faith in your union. Support your union, support your colleagues, support the delegates that are sticking their head up for you.
I think the United Voice members need to stick together. If government can divide us, they will always win. We need to be able to stand our ground, fight the good fight, and take it to them.
It's only through power that you get change. I think that you have to be united to get achievable outcomes.
United Voice will actively campaign and will not give up until such point of time as our rights and entitlements are provided for, that we can still deliver a safe service for the public of Queensland.
The fight against the attacks on ambulance officers will move into another gear, with United Voice going out across the state for the second time in 2 months. United Voice will conduct dozens of workplace meetings to talk to members about the campaign. Keep in touch by reading the fortnightly e-newsletter and go to the website www.ambulance.myunitedvoice.org.